All right, we are here today with Tyler Thomson. Tyler is one of our coaches in 2025 on the Signature Summer Trip and is also the associate head coach for the women's team at University of North Carolina. Tyler, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Um, we'll dive right into it. Tyler, you were one of our coaches for an awesome trip. We had 14 kids from all over the country. We went to Spain, Holland, Switzerland. How did you first learn about Atlas?
Well, my son, who was one of the kids on the trip, who was 15 at the time, I guess, I don't have any connection to social media, but he does. And he saw something on Instagram and he showed it to me and he's like, Dad, this looks really cool. And so I looked into it a little bit and found that I knew some of the folks who were the founders of Atlas. So I reached out to them. They got me in touch with you, and that's where it went. That's where it came from.
Once you reached out and dug a little bit deeper, what caught your eye? What made you want to look further into it?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, from Lincoln's standpoint, my son's standpoint, he loves tennis, likes to travel. Travel is something that we value in our family. And it was selfishly, from my point of view, first of all, an opportunity to spend some time with my son on a trip of a lifetime was pretty cool, and to be one of his coaches, um, and just the idea of him exploring new places. Me too. I mean, I've been to Europe many times, but especially for him to just see the world and to meet new people and to tie in that exploratory experience with tennis was just seemed like a incredible opportunity.
So once you guys, we went back and forth to make it all kind of official. Once you were all set, ready to go, flights booked, pre-trip, what were kind of your expectations? What were you thinking the trip was going to be like?
Well, I part of it is my answer is from a coach's standpoint. I was curious what my role would be, and how many kids there would be, what kind of level of tennis. But I don't really get hung up on that stuff too much. Those are some things that cross my mind. But I was just excited um, about the experience, and I know that Lincoln was crossing off the days on his calendar. It was something that we were both so much looking forward to, but it seems so far in the future. And then the closer it got, I know he was just extremely excited. I think every day for a month he's saying, "I can't wait till this trip starts," and so yeah, a lot of excitement, anticipation, and we weren't too concerned with the details. We knew it'd be a good time.
Yeah, I can relate to that anticipation beforehand. When you're like thinking back to the trip from a coach's perspective, what were some of the ways that you felt like the structure of the trip and the way it's all designed helps players improve their game?
Well, I think the first thing that is the most important foundation of improvement is enjoying it. Whether it's at that level or the collegiate level or even beyond, I think if you are enjoying what you're doing, it's much more motivating, and that's the conduit to development. So that's number one, and I think that's probably one of the main gifts of Atlas is that camaraderie that the kids develop and wanting to be on court with their friends, screwing around, like just having fun. It doesn't have to be serious training all the time. But so that was a big part of it. And then I think the opportunity to play in clay is unique. Clay is an amazing developmental tool for learning how to be patient, learning the necessity of slowing down the game, not needing to hit winners all the time. So the clay experience was big. And then just the volume of tennis, the quantity of tennis. I don't know whether all these kids played that frequently when they were at home, so to be practicing every day, training every day, doing it in a fun environment, combining that with tournament play, which is a huge part of development. I think those are just some ingredients that really made it productive in that regard.
And thinking more specifically, what were some of the areas that you saw the most improvement in in our players?
Consistency. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like I think just, and it's at every level, just kind of avoiding the compulsion to try to hit Hollywood shots all the time, and just recognizing that if you hit one more ball than the opponent, things are probably going to go pretty well. So um, I think the consistency was important for them. Um, Doubles, I think it was an educational experience for a lot of them in doubles because doubles doesn't always get emphasized in junior tennis, but in college tennis, it's a massive, massive part of the game. So for them to learn a little bit more about doubles, understand positioning, understand patterns of play, understand what it means to be a good teammate, those were all important. Um, and then I would say, lastly, just recognizing how important behavior and attitude on the court is. And when you play tournaments and you're playing against strangers in a strange land, especially when you're kind of representing your country in a way, I think it raises the bar a little bit on how they feel they need to be behaving. And that's an important part of development as well.
I knew you would say like our group kind of rose to that challenge of representing kind of more than themselves, being in new places.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of them have, I mean, all of them have immaturity that isn't going to get washed out in 3 weeks, um, but I think they took pride in the fact that they were a part of Atlas, wearing the Atlas gear, um, and feeling like they were part of a team. And when you're part of a team, it's not just about you all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also think that having coaches like you to steer the ship is a big part of that. Talking about college tennis, you've obviously been a college coach for a number of years, had a lot of success. So I'm curious for your take on how do you think a program like Atlas, getting a chance to go travel and have this experience, can help players that are interested in playing college tennis down the road, whether that's, D1, D3, club tennis, whatever.
Well, I think from a developmental side, like I said, it's being a part of a team, training with regularity with the team. Um, I can speak just to my involvement, but I think the opportunity for them to get to know a college coach and to ask questions and to learn a little bit about the landscape, and for me to share things about our team that lead to success. And then just having me as a contact going forward, I think looking into colleges can be a bewildering experience. Kind of, there's just so many colleges out there, thousands and thousands of college tennis programs. And so having somebody who knows that landscape, I think, is a valuable asset.
One of the cool things to me about the program at UNC that you're such a big part of is obviously amazing players, amazing success on the court, but just the way that you guys go about it, the how you represent yourselves, represent your school. It's something I've honestly admired since before I even knew you, just following along from afar. And so it's felt super lucky to have you bring some of that, secret sauce to Atlas. Um, what's a couple of the things that are part of the approach at UNC that you tried to bring to our team, to our group?
Well, I would say that effort and attitude are really our two pillars. When we recruit, we tell everybody that they could go 0 and 122 in their career here, but if they have a good attitude and that they're working hard every day, then we're going to be patting them on the back all the time. So those are the primary things I try to instill, and having fun. That's we have some program values, and enjoyment is the one that probably is most reflected upon as an important thing. So I guess I tried to carry that into kind of our way of being with the Atlas group, is have fun, and along with the other coaches. I want to say it wasn't just me. I mean, we had two amazing other coaches who were adding to that environment. So I would say enjoyment, attitude, effort.
Yeah, I echo that. We amazing coaches, super lucky to have them all on our team. One more question. Looking at UNC, obviously you just had an amazing success with Reese Brantmeier winning NCAA singles title. What's one or two of, obviously extremely talented player, just amazing baseline level, but beyond that, some of the intangibles, what are some of those things that, maybe players don't realize from watching her play, and that are actually applicable regardless of the level, and would be just as useful for our players or anyone listening, really?
Well, you happen to have picked a incredible example for me to talk about with Reese, because she's one of the most extraordinary human beings we've ever had here and that I've ever coached. I mean, she's on my Mount Rushmore of kids that I've coached, undoubtedly. That's not just a small part of that is her tennis. I mean, academically, she's a stud. She won the Elite 90 award this year, which is, of all the kids who qualify for NCAA championships in the team format, which is, I don't know, 100 student athletes maybe, she had the highest GPA of all those student athletes, which, not to mention, she's an incredible artist. She, she did a portrait of Billie Jean King, which hangs in Billie Jean's living room. She's incredibly well read. She's extremely humble. She's much more interested in the success of the team than she is herself. Um, and she's a really socially aware kid. She's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to improve the courts in her hometown. She's suing the NCAA, to get prize money allowable for college tennis players. So this kid is she's an outlier, and those are contributing factors as to why she's as good at tennis as she is.
Yeah, I think that last line is such a key part of it. It's like all of that stuff that maybe isn't directly tennis, forehands and backhands, X's and O's, it contributes to, your performance. So
Yeah.
that's so cool to hear. As someone that's been in tennis for so long, and I'm sure you've been to every tournament known to man in the US, you got the chance to go to these tournaments in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about the differences and just compare and contrast the tournament experience as a coach?
Yeah. That was one of the coolest parts for me and for everybody. We're lagging behind Europe in how our tournaments are run. Honestly, like there's just an ethos there with their tournaments, which is much more about sportsmanship, about relationships. Um, for example, I think the most notable thing for me that I've told many people who haven't experienced is the custom of the winner offering to buy a drink for the loser. Um, and that spans ages. Like we had the cool thing about these tournaments is that you might play a 45-year-old dad, you might play a 60-year-old grandpa, you might play a young woman who's 21, and so it's based on level rather than age. And because you know that you're going to be sitting down and conversing with your opponent after the match, it takes the edge off the competitiveness that might exist in a match that might veer out of the lane of sportsmanship. And so if our kids won, sometimes they were buying a drink for a 50-year-old, or they were being purchased a drink, and then they'd sit down and hang out with that person for 15 minutes, whatever, and just get to know them as a human being. And so that's just an incredible experience. I mean, I would say that's one of the best experiences of everything for this trip is them to experience the opportunity to get to know some people from another country, compare cultural things. So that was really neat.
Absolutely. That's always one of my favorite things, and I always appreciate how our players, there's always a little like ambivalence at first because it's just so foreign to them. I mean, I'd never seen that until I went to Europe, but it's always encouraging to see how quickly everyone embraces it and realizes like, no, this is actually really cool. I'm just getting to know someone who otherwise I'd never really learn their story, where they're from, what it's like to live in Holland or Spain, whatever. You mentioned that was one of your, favorite memories, experiences from the trip. Do you have any others that stand out from the experience?
Well, I'd probably have to go country by country. I loved personally the day in Barcelona. The non-tennis things are also super fun. um, the experiences of having meals at different restaurants and kind of navigating that and navigating their language. I didn't like navigating the small roads in the vans that we were driving. But I thought the day in Barcelona was super cool. I ended up hanging out with a few of the kids. I think there were 3 kids with me, and we were in I think it's called like Las Rambas or something, the real
Los
narrow,
Ramblas. Yep.
yeah, area of Barcelona where you've got these small alleys and you can turn every which way. And we did this thing where every time we came to an intersection, we went in order. A different person decided which way we went. It was like this cool exploration. We didn't care if we got lost because we had Google Maps. So we'd come to one intersection and Jonathan would say, "Let's go right," and then we'd come to the next one, and Lincoln would say, "Let's go left." And that was a fun day. I love seeing the cathedral there. It was incredible. Um, Had a neat experience in Holland when a lot of the kids went to a concert. I can't even remember who it was. Some famous Drake or
Kendrick Lamar and
Kendrick
SZA.
Lamar. Yeah. So there were some kids who didn't go, and I took those kids into the town of Utrecht because we looked for a sports bar. We wanted to watch the Wimbledon final. The Wimbledon final was that night, and so we found a sports bar in Utrecht, and we went in there to eat and have dinner, and it was dead quiet. It was completely full, and everybody was about the tennis. Like every single TV was turned to Wimbledon, and you know, people in the bar were sharing their appreciation for points, and I just felt like, when are you going to find a restaurant or a bar in America where every TV is tuned into tennis and everybody's quietly watching? So that was a cool experience. And then Switzerland was just maybe my favorite place, just because the scenery is just jaw dropping. I mean, it was ridiculously impressive. So lots of great memories.
Love it. Um, Tyler, thank you so much. This was great. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.